What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the College Football Uncensored podcast, brought to you by Saturday Down South. We'll get started in a minute here. Waiting on Chris. Wait for the chat to load up a little bit. How was everybody's weekend? What a day. Mondays, huh? How's everybody doing? Big day for UGA fans. When is it not a big day for UGA fans? Noah the Goat. Hello there, sir. Thanks for tuning in. We've got, Ben Diesel. We're going to get to that. Don't you worry. Not surprisingly, the Georgia fans are showing out here in the chat. They're ready to go.
I was trying to make an entrance, Tyler. Am I right? No? All right, we're done. We're just not doing the Creed thing this week. Why? This setup is nice. What?
What's going on?
Nothing. I see that Ben Diesel has already started 2024 recruiting talk.
He has.
It's good. It's a big day. A lot of stuff happened.
Yes.
You always, whenever we come on the show, you always have this weird smirk, and I know it's never good.
Well, should we just get started?
Yeah, I thought we were.
Oh.
Hey, everybody, okay. Hold on. We're going to get into it, Ben Diesel. We'll get into all that.
Before we get started recording, do you hear yourself back?
No.
Okay, that's good. Because I don't have headphones.
No, you're fine.
Thank you, Ben Diesel. I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not, but I happen to like this shirt.
How do I look?
What's the shirt say?
Mine?
Yeah. It's like a mixture.
One of the ones I made for Breaking Tea in 2020 when they had the Masters in the fall.
You made that?
Yeah.
Wow.
This is I was really proud of this one here. I'll back up here. You can see the whole thing. So I was really proud of this one because we had this Slack channel with them, and the whole thing I wanted to do was start making game day shirts, kind of like Barstool did. And it was an outlet for creativity and all that kind of stuff. And I thought it'd be really good. And what ended up happening was, Cordy in the chat, what ended up happening was I would just throw out ideas and they would just make a slight change. And then they would just print the shirt and then make all this money. And I was getting pretty annoyed and frustrated. So then I was like, hey, I have an idea for the Masters shirt. We can throw this up, because it's going to be on a fall Saturday. And I flipped out finally. I was like, no, we're just going to use my design. Here's the design. And they made it exactly. And it was their best selling shirt of the season. It was really fun.
Interesting. That was a great story, Chris. It's really good to be back with you.
Fuck you, Tyler. You know what? I've had enough fucking misguided bullshit comments headed at me all weekend. So I'm not going to take it from you of all people.
Uh-oh.
You made the title of this Dylan RAIOLA watch is over.
Yep.
Oh my God.
I did. It was clickbait, Chris. I mean, what do you want me to do? It's clickbait. Yeah. All right, let's get into the pod here. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of College Football Uncensored podcast, brought to you by Saturday Down South. I'm your host Tyler Huck, and with me as always, my co-host Chris Marler. Chris,
viral sensation, Chris Marler.
Viral sensation. And another step of hating UGA.
No, that's not don't add fuel to this fucking bullshit fire.
You hate Stetson Bennett. Just admit it.
You know what? Hold on. I don't want to get up and you're going to see this, how shitty. Hold on. I don't care. My room's a mess.
Is that your podcast microphone back there?
Yep.
What?
Things are in disarray, Tyler.
So you should be that.
I'm moving in 2 weeks.
Do you want to plug that in or?
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay. You're moving?
Anyway, I don't hate Stetson Bennett. I actually have loved Stetson Bennett for a very long time, longer than most fucking Georgia fans have. That being said, I'm changing my favorite shirt. So that being said, It is still insane. You weren't even on the podcast when we did this one last week. We talked about the Stetson thing, about like the fact that he didn't graduate. And so let's just off the top, because it's now become a national story as it. Like Ben Diesel, I know that you're trolling, and I get the whole thing, and I fully understand what you're doing. It would hold so much more weight. It would hold like no part of bringing up the Stetson not graduating thing was a slight at Stetson. I even said it in the video. It wasn't like I'm not judging him. It took me 5.5 years to get a fucking degree in liberal studies. It happens. Like I'm not like he's gonna be just fine. We all love Stetson Bennett. And I'm sure, Harry, I'm sure you are over it. I'm sure you are over it. The entire rest of like the college football world obviously also cared about it because that's why the story went viral everywhere. And it was all over TikTok. It had over like 100K views, and it was all over, it's like it was being like I was on Philly radio last week, and all that kind of shit. And I fully understand like what's happening. And if we're gonna talk in facts, like I try to always say, the reason why you guys got upset is because it's about your team. And it's not even anything bad about him, but it would hold so much more weight about the Stetson thing and you guys getting all butthurt about it if your own fan base didn't start the whole fucking thing about Jalen Hurts and like who's allowed to claim him very weirdly like 2 months ago. It's a crazy story. Stetson's going to be fine. No one cares. Like he's doing great. Again, don't be mad at me. Be mad. Like it took more than one person to help him not graduate for that long.
I mean, look, he clearly has a job at Raising Cane's if he wants.
And here's another thing. Harry says we have no true answer. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. You just don't want to admit that I got it right. And that is the answer. He didn't graduate. If you look all across the internet and are trying to find a picture or a mention or whatever of a football player at Georgia graduating and you can't find it, that's the answer. He didn't graduate. I get that it's unbelievable. I still like have a hard time believing it, but we found the facts. Like we did find it. This is not some whistleblower investigation. It's not going to change the course of his career. It's not going to change the fact that Georgia's won 2 natties. But we found the truth. This is the truth. He didn't graduate. I just don't get it. I just don't get it.
He was in college for 6 or 7 years.
It was 6 years.
I just feel like it's almost impossible to not graduate.
Yeah, we already did the story, and we already talked about it. And Harry is right, and I love Harry to death. But like we have already talked about it, and we don't need to get back into it. I was happy.
The only update was that you went viral from it.
Yeah, it was awesome because it was like it was all over. I think like Barstool actually credited me, which was a shock. No, but like I will say that from in this job, it was like, yeah, it's cool that it happened. Like it was cool that that I knew I should have put the fucking podcast logo on the post about it.
Chris, that's what we call a missed opportunity in the biz.
You realize that I put it on the other one that I did about mental health like 3 weeks ago, and I had to have a talking to with our with our management. She was like, I think it's great you're talking about mental health. Maybe you don't put the podcast and logo on it about you talking about your problems. And I was like, yeah, that's fair. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I came in hot. I'm very. It's been a great weekend. It's been a great day for I think Georgia especially.
Speaking of Georgia QBs,
wow. Dude, like a huge pickup.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the number 1 player in the 2024 class, and he actually is a huge human being, especially for his age. 6'3", 220, consensus 5-star across the industry. Mm-hmm. Dylan Raiola commits to UGA today. He's out of Phoenix, Arizona.
I believe he's a 5-star plus kid too, which is like a new thing.
Yep. Yes, which means that he's a 5-star on every network, which is pretty rare. But yeah, man, I mean, this kid is projected to be a 1st-round pick as long as he has his head on straight. That's the kind of prospect he is. So I mean, it's crazy to me the kind of talent that UGA has recruited into that room.
Well, here's what's scary. And there's 2 ways to look at it. And I'm not going to be petty about Georgia and the quarterback thing. Because like I remember, and Willie Gray probably remembers this from a couple of years ago, because I did bring it up and I think it's a valuable thing or a valid thing. Because I remember saying one time, and I kind of still stand by it, kind of. Like if you're a 5-star quarterback, how do you trust that Kirby Smart is going to do what's best for you by bringing you in? And when I said this, it was like 3 years ago, right? It was like the I think it was the JT Daniels thing, because or right before he committed, because you saw the thing with Justin Fields and how that played out. Jake Fromm was like a 5-star on some sites, I think early on at least. And he started, but he didn't, he kind of like his like the talent, like the ceiling was kind of there. Because the bottom line with Kirby is this: Kirby is going to win because that's what fucking matters. It doesn't matter how many stars you have. He's stockpiling a crazy amount of talent, and then also developing them. Like, this is not some situation where you have like, oh, you brought in a 5-star and this guy was a bust. Like, I mean, dude, he put up 55 first-round picks in his first 7 years, multiple 3-stars that he turned into starters and first-round picks, multiple. Like, there's not a coach in the country that's doing a better job with a program than Kirby Smart. So I have like the smallest of hesitations to wonder if he's going to use RAIOLA effectively, because we haven't seen him really do that with like this level of player. But the scary part is, and the overwhelming, I think, feeling that a lot of fans probably have at this point is like, Jesus Christ, dude, this guy just won 2 natties with a walk-on quarterback. What's he going to do with the best quarterback in the country, who people think is like an all-time level recruit that is like, has a higher ceiling than Arch Manning and all that stuff? It's like, I mean, it's an incredible job.
Did you hear the rumors that Arch Manning was like already thinking about going in the portal?
I didn't believe that for shit.
Yeah, I don't either, but I don't know. You never know in this day and age. So obviously it's huge. A bunch of people, including our own friend of the podcast, Graham Coffey, were tweeting about how this is just the start. Multiple huge commits coming in the coming days, weeks. I'm like, I mean, isn't that probably going to happen at Georgia regardless? I feel like, but whatever.
But not like this though, because here's the thing too, is like, I don't think Bama's ever got a number 1 overall recruit. I think it's Andre Smith might have been. It like Georgia, it's fun, and I remember thinking this a couple weeks ago that it was kind of surprising to see how excited they were. I don't know if there's a fan base that keeps up with everything more year round than Georgia fans, because they are like, because they're in the middle of like this is the fun part, right? Like, you're in the beginning of the dynasty, and I don't think their fans are big enough douchebags like Bama fans to be like, yeah, I mean, I'm just used to it, like whatever, like it just like kind of like
I don't
ruin
know.
the whole
I think
thing.
It depends on who you talk to.
That's fair. There were a couple people I remember who didn't want to go out to LA last year because they're like, "I'll just go to Houston next year." And I was like, "Fuck off." No, but like, they're in the middle of this whole thing, and I think there's a difference in getting a 5-star quarterback versus getting the number 1 overall quarterback and also the number 1 commit in the entire country, or recruit in the entire country, and the dominoes that kind of brings in now. Because you see all the, I know the portal's crazy, but you see all this like kind of like super team type shit where it's like, he's gonna bring in that Williams kid, the receiver, and he's the top receiver in that class. And and again, like we've seen what Kirby can do. Kirby made the national championship game with Jake Fromm as a freshman and probably should have won. And now he's got this is crazy.
But he didn't.
I'm not gonna say it, but yeah, you're right. Oh, I'm sorry. Smith is the receiver who's committed to Ohio State currently out of Opelika, Florida, the number 2 guy. But a lot of people say they're a package deal. I believe I'm right about that, right? Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. If so,
I haven't heard much with UGA and Smith. I from what I've seen, he's, even after RAIOLA decommitted from Ohio State, he's been all about Ohio State. Florida was hopeful to get him on for an OV, but I don't think that's happening. In terms of, he might go on an official visit, but he ain't gonna go to Florida.
And if you're a receiver, like, I mean, I don't know how you don't go to Ohio State, just like with the numbers they're putting out there at that position, especially in the NFL. Yeah. But here's a scary thought: if you're a fan of any other team, okay, in the country, this is the current top 6 players in the country. Dylan RAIOLA, number 1 player, just committed to Georgia. Jeremiah Smith, receiver, 6'3", 198, out of Florida, committed to Ohio State. A lot of people think that he is a package deal with RAIOLA, and he's going to go to Georgia. Number 3 guy is not committed, but he's a DL. He's like 100% crystal ball to OU. Number 4 player, Ellis Robinson, the 4th cornerback from IMG, committed to Georgia. Number 6 and number 5. Number 5 is Sammy Brown, who's a linebacker, who's number 1 linebacker in the country, who's from the state of Georgia, Jefferson, Georgia, which is right outside of Athens. And then number 6 is Brian Wingo, a receiver from St. Louis, who's 100% crystal ball to Georgia. I'm not like, say they miss on Smith, dude, then they're going to get 4 of the top 6. Like it's just a crazy amount of talent.
No doubt. All right, well let's maybe move away from Georgia, although there might be some players on this list that are involved in Georgia, but we're talking about the top 5 breakout players in 2023.
Well, real quick, because one thing I wanted to do, sorry, is that I wanted to talk about some of the former players, like who were ranked number 1 and how things worked out for them over the past several years, right? And like where they projected or where they ended up. Last year, obviously, you had Arch Manning. It's obviously too early in his career to figure out where his career goes. We can just go through the last 10 years, and this is just number 1 overall players, not quarterbacks. Okay, Myles Garrett ends up being the number 1 overall pick, right? He was the number 1 player in the country coming out of high school. Ends up being the number 1 pick in the NFL draft once he finally finished up school. 2015, Trent Thompson's actually the only number 1 player that ever went undrafted. I think he ended up being in the league for a minute. Rashawn Gary, I don't remember if he was the first.
So then, wait, Trent Thompson, he went to Georgia, so they have landed a number 1 overall player.
Oh yeah, you're right, but not, I guess, like quarterback then.
Yeah.
Rashawn Gary, who went to Michigan. I mean, I'm pretty sure he went number 1 overall. Maybe this wasn't a good idea. Number 1 in 2017 was Walker Little, an offensive tackle from Stanford. Stanford.
Go on.
Stanford landed the number 1 overall pick or number 1 overall player.
It repeated that way.
Okay, maybe this wasn't a good exercise. 2018, Trevor Lawrence obviously ends up being the number 1 overall pick. All right, this was a bad idea. Number 1, 2019 was Antonio Alfano, who went to Bama and never stepped foot on the field and transferred like 3 other schools. Number 1 the following year, Bryce Young also went number 1 overall, so that's better. So it could happen. Maybe this was a misguided thing. I probably shouldn't have done this. I thought it was going to be a lot better.
All right, top 5 breakout players in 2023. You want to start, Chris, or you want me to start with?
I've talked too much already.
All right. This guy, I feel like got a lot of accolades last year, especially because he had a big game against Auburn to start the year. Mm-hmm. But Penn State running back Nick Singleton. Was a true freshman last year.
Yeah.
937 yards, 6.3 yards per attempt, 219 pounds, 10 touchdowns last year. Yeah. Against Auburn, I think that was kind of his breakout game, 12.4 yards per attempt. Yeah. Penn State, I think, is vying to be a 3rd team in the Big Ten that has a realistic shot at making the playoff next year. Another guy that could have been on this list is their quarterback, Drew Allar, who a lot of people think is really good. So I think Nick Singleton's going to have a breakout year next year for Penn State.
My first one is not really a big I don't even know if breakout's the right word for it. I just think a lot of people in this part of the country don't know who he is. And it's tight end from Texas, Jatavian Sanders. He's going to be a 1st-round pick. Brock Bowers has just dominated the talk around the tight end position so much that we don't really talk about any other players of that position around the country. This kid is really good, really good. A lot of the talk on that team obviously gets around to the receivers. And all that kind of stuff, and then the 5-star talent they brought in there. But this kid's a former 5-star. I think that he's like going to end up being it. Anytime you have like a guy that wears number 0, I just automatically assume like wearing 0 now for a college football player is kind of like when like defensive linemen first start wearing single-digit numbers. I just assume they're like legit.
Yeah, no, yeah, 0 is kind of like when you used to get number 1. Like. That was always kind of a thing. All right, so for me, this guy probably not going to be on your list, but Devontae Walker. He's a wide receiver, transferred out of Kent State. He went to UNC, 6'3" last year at Kent State, 921 yards, 11 touchdowns. actually in that UGA game last year, he put up 7 catches on 8 targets for 106 yards and a touchdown. He's at UNC now with Drake May.
Right.
I think he could have a huge year next year.
Yeah, that's a good one, Tyler. Okay. I will say, and this is possibly going to be a big swing and a miss. Okay.
It's a good way to prep it.
Yeah. Let me preface this by saying I don't know what I'm fucking talking about. Dante Moore, the quarterback who's from Detroit last year.
I thought about him.
Yeah, so I just think in that offense, we've seen Chip Kelly have so much success with quarterbacks in general. I mean, if you're a Falcons fan like us, Marcus Mariota was a broken dream that was given or sold to us, or I don't know where they found him, like on a shelf at a fucking like Goodwill somewhere. But remember what he did with him back in the day was like magical. He's bigger than I think DTR was. I don't remember DTR size, but he did look kind of undersized, like running that offense. But you're talking about a 4 to 5 year dude that is leaving that offense, and UCLA finally felt relevant again for the first time in a while, right? I think Dante Moore is one of the many 5-stars. I think 5 or 6 5-star quarterbacks from last year's class, and this is one of the. I think he was ranked 3rd, so and 4th overall in the country. That's a really, really good get for them. I think he'll be good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they brought in a kid from Kent State who played with the wide receiver I just mentioned, Colin Schlee, I believe his name is, in the transfer portal. Maybe they'll give more like half the year to kind of learn the system, but I mean, the kid's got all the talent in the world. So it's good pick. For me, these next couple are on the defensive side. Go with the hometown team. Braden Fisk, D tackle, Florida State, transfer from Western Michigan, 6'5", 300-pounder. He played all over the D line, A gap, B gap, outside, 730 snaps last year. He was on Western Michigan, so he was really the only guy on the team that was probably worth the shit.
Worst fucking world.
Now you put him on a D-line at Florida State that is the strength of the team outside of quarterback. I think he's going to have a huge year. Last year he had 35 quarterback hurries, 8 sacks. He's a guy who I think people will know a lot about towards the middle of the year.
Oh, man. Okay, so this is I'm having a really hard time not putting Arian Smith on this fucking list. And the reason I'm not going to is that when Connor and I did this in 2019, he was still on my list of breakout players because he as we've already talked about, you know how Georgia players are when they get to college, they don't ever graduate. So no, I'm obviously kidding, but he's had I don't know if you saw this going around on Twitter today. There was a thing about players who's like a player you want to see what their life or their career would have looked like without injuries. Arian Smith is up there, man, from like a college football standpoint right now. He's definitely up there for me. I will say that I think the next pick I'm going to make, or person I'm going to say, receiver from Mizzou, Luther Burden, 5-star kid from last year, thought he would have had a breakout. It's hard to have a offensive-minded coach, and I understand the limitations they've had at quarterback. Fully get it. But you lost Larry Roundtree, and then you lost, and I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, of course.
Dominic Lovett.
Nope. Yes, that too. So that's an even better point. But the running back they had in 2021, who was I think he counted for 73% of their offense in the last month of the last season.
Little bowling ball guy.
No, that was Roundtree. This guy,
I can't remember his name.
I can't either. Now I feel like an asshole because he was so under. I think I put one time on social media that I was like, "We all love this guy so much." People are like, no one fucking knows who that is, and now I can't remember his name. Anyway, I think Luther Bolden, who's a really, really good talent. It's hard to have an offense without stars and to still find a way to not get this kid the ball. So, and I know Eli Drinkwitz is listening because he listens to our show every week. Give him the fucking ball. I don't understand how difficult this is. He's the best player on the team. And as you pointed out, now that Dominic Lovett is gone, not as many options. And Dominic Lovett was one of the most underrated players in the SEC, if not the country last year. Give this kid the fucking ball.
Yeah, former 5-star. I think he was the number 1 receiver.
We don't need to talk about number 1 rankings anymore because I botched that whole thing.
All right, number 4. This one may seem like these next two may seem like they've already broken out, but I think there's a lot more to be had with both these players. Both of them reside in the SEC. This one plays for LSU. Name is Harold Perkins. We saw a lot about him towards the end of the year last year. Became a major pass rush specialist. He had 4 sacks against Arkansas, 9 total when he didn't even play all the games last year. 6'2", 220. I think he's going to be maybe the #1 defensive player in the nation next year.
He already is.
No.
What are you talking about? This is like if that dickhead cop. Why do you keep looking at your watch? That's like
that was the first time I've looked at it.
It's like that dickhead cop from Shawshank was like, you know who's gonna be a breakout player? Andy Dufresne. And I was like, well, yeah, Dufresne fucking left. He literally broke out like 2 years ago. Harold Perkins is like already a star. Like he's a freak, man. He's like if you go back and look at some of those other games, like the big games that they needed him in, like Auburn, where they were in that weird back and forth. He had like an interception when you remember when Auburn ran that fucking jet sweep receiver pass in the 4th quarter. Like they were like on the doorstep to scoring and finally putting away the game, and they fucked up the whole thing. Anyway, he's a really, really good player. Really good player.
Yeah, I think he's going to become like the Will Anderson of college football next year.
Oh boy. Well, good to see you, Founder R. All right, my next one, I kind of feel like I want to be a little bit of a homer. So let me ask you a question to see how this is fair. If we say best player, is it like best or like breakout player? Is it like it? I feel like there's a couple people that already kind of broke out last year, like the running back from Oregon, but people down here don't really pay attention to players out west. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So does that count? But does that count? I kind of already did it with the Texas thing. I'll go a different direction. I'll tell you this. I'll give you a quarterback. I'll give you 2 quarterbacks because I'm going to be a homer in my last pick. 2 quarterbacks. Drew Allar from Penn State and Peyton Thorne from Auburn. And the reason why, just hear me out. Peyton Thorne, I don't think is like any kind of crazy talented kid. I think he's like a former 4-star, and he did pretty well at Michigan State. Coming to Auburn, I don't know if he's in a situation where he's going to have the most talent around him he's ever had. Because I don't like Michigan State, like they recruited pretty well under God, I'm like off on everything today. Mel Tucker up there at
Michigan State.
Yeah, but they were horrible, right? Auburn, I mean, like they've done a great job in the portal by especially shoring up the offensive line. I don't know how the receiver room is going to look. It's still kind of like a pretty big point of weakness. But those 2 quarterbacks I chose because there might not be 2 quarterbacks that are at more high profile programs that'll be in situations to like shock the college football world. Like if Penn State goes on the road and they're able to beat Ohio State, because Ohio State's going to be really good this year, or Penn State's able to beat Michigan at home earlier in the year. And I think when that kid is like starting, especially because he's taken over for Sean Clifford, who was there for 8 years, Peyton Thorne, who Auburn's early season schedule is not great. They go out to California. People aren't going to watch that game against Cal. But if this kid is able to put up again, I say this a lot. Like the Hugh Freeze offense is very different than Gus Malzahn, even though it kind of gets like wrapped up and put in the same kind of conversation because it's a much more pass-heavy offense. And again, if Hugh Freeze can make Bo Wallace a 2-time 3,000-yard passer,
Bo Wallace,
kind of think he could do wonders with this guy.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, I know Peyton Thorne. The only reason I know this is because Florida State is currently recruiting a wide receiver from Michigan State in the portal, along with Ole Miss. He should be deciding this week. And his reason for leaving there was basically he thought Peyton Thorne sucked, and he wanted a better QB for his last year. So we'll see. Another guy that may not be considered a breakout player to some listening to this podcast, and I'm sure Chris will probably shit on it as well.
I will, dude. Fuck you, bro.
But I think he's only scratched the surface. Michael Williams from Georgia.
Why would I show? Fuck! Why don't perpetuate the whole thing? Michael Williams is going to be a star.
Yes, he is. Look at his PFF grades from game by game last year. He got better every single game. He took a little bit of a dip in the playoffs, but he also did have a sack in both the semifinal game and the championship game. 6'5".
He's also up against in that Ohio State game, arguably the best offensive lineman that came out of last year's class or at last year's draft class.
Right. So 6'5", 265, just another in the line of Georgia D linemen. That'll be a first round pick. But this guy, this is where his breakout will be is next year.
We have such similar thoughts. So we said 5, and I really want to give a Bama one just because I think Jason McClellan's going to be good. People don't really know him as well just because he's been kind of buried on the depth chart and he got injured a couple years back. I think he's going to be really good as like the main running back at Bama. Bama's got a former 5-star defensive edge guy that I think is now playing inside linebacker named Jihad Campbell, which emotionally I don't know how I feel about his name.
You mix America's team, the Alabama Crimson Tide, with a name like Jihad.
Let me tell you something. I'm as liberal as they come, but if that dude kneels for the anthem, I will have a fucking fit. I'm just telling you right now. If we're all being honest with each other. Okay, so but here's the guy I'm gonna go with. Because I do think Jason's gonna be good, but I'll give you an SEC guy. Branson Robinson. This is like a perfect breakout star in terms of like he's remember like a couple of years back when DeAndre Swift like it was having such a great breakout year, and then they showed that picture of his dad in the stands, and his dad's like fucking just cock diesel huge.
Yeah.
That like Branson Robinson has pictures of him coming out of high school where you're like, that kid's not, that's a grown ass man.
That's his dad, right?
Yeah. It's like that kid, you saw it in the national championship game a couple times. Like he went in untouched, which a lot of people did in that game. But I think that he's a kid in that kind of offense. I know they're going to throw the ball a lot with Beck, but it's also still Kirby. And also here's the thing too, Georgia's going to be up big in a lot of games. That kid's going to be good, man. That kid's going to be really good.
I agree with someone in the chat. Where was it? Maybe it was William Gray that said ETN from Florida.
Yeah.
That kid is really good.
I agree with that. It's going to be fun, man. There's going to be a lot of you had a really good list, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And also good to see Trevor Garza back in the comments. Hasn't seen him in a minute. He brought up a really good point about Anais Smith. Anais Smith kind of also goes back to the 0 thing. He wears number 0. He's coming back from injury. I don't know if he's a breakout guy. Anais Smith is, I think, one of the best players in the SEC, regardless of that. Anyway, so I think there's a lot of good players, and there's like several more that I'm sure we're glossing over because it's the top 5. So we'll get to that next week. How about the news that came out today of the
Magnificent Seven?
Magnificent Seven. Which is like, I'm so glad you pointed this out because the whole Magnificent Seven thing is so funny in so many ways because it was like because
it includes NC State, Virginia Tech, and Virginia.
I'm in a group chat on Twitter with somebody his name's like Who's something. He's a Virginia guy, and he's like, I'm a Virginia guy, and even I don't feel like
nothing quite magnificent about that group.
No. Depending on who you ask, there's not a lot of magnificent things coming out of Charlottesville. But no, I think like you've been on this, I think, more than anybody, but way more than me early on. And that's financial responsibility, which we want to go. No, I'm kidding. Well, I'm not, but the fact that like college football as we know it is changing, and there's just like the wheels have been in motion, and there's no turning back now.
Yeah, the fact that I don't know. I mean, I still don't think anything is imminent because apparently the grant of rights in the ACC is very ironclad. But at the same time, the fact that there are now 7 schools in the ACC that are willing to put their name out there and say we basically don't want to be here anymore. It just spells the end of the ACC. I mean, it really does. I don't know when that will be, but this thing is moving on. Some of those teams will go play in the Big Ten. Some will play in the SEC, and it'll continue this growth.
Yeah. So what I think is going to happen, I really hope this doesn't happen, but the whole like 24 to 30 team super conference thing kind
Yeah.
of feels inevitable at this point. Like if we're talking about 10 years from now, I think
Yeah.
we're in year 3 of like that kind of shit, and I hate it. I fucking hate it. We're like because here's the thing, it's like it's not like the NFL, and that's just
Yeah, well, it takes away from the regular season games. I mean, for
but
sure. I think the playoffs will be a lot better. It'll be every game will be a lot more fun to watch. Like
yeah,
maybe in the future you're not going to be watching, Bama have to play UT Martin, Vandy, and
why do they use that example? Why don't you use Georgia's schedule?
ULM.
You guys played Jackson State and you guys lost to them. So
No,
don't hate on
what do you mean hate? I'm just
don't hate
saying
on
every team has to play these games. You're like, Jesus, we got to play Rice.
yeah, that sucks.
It's
Not
just like we're
largest
playing
team down
this year. We're playing North Alabama and Southern Miss. It's like,
right.
all right, you'd be lucky to get 50,000 fans at the Southern. But imagine if that turns into Texas one day
Yeah.
or Oklahoma. I think it'll be better, throughout the season. But yeah, not every game is you're riding and dying on every play, because if you
Right.
lose a game, you're basically out.
Yeah, and that's what I've said since I was little, man, that I loved college football so much is that like and I would always use this word and I always felt like a little bit weird using it because it's like a little bit dramatic, which is perfect for me. But it was like the season was so precious. Like you only had is when I was growing up, just to date myself, you only had 11 weeks, you only had 11 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you lost one game and you like, dude, and think about this, like Penn State, which we know what we know about Penn State now. Penn State had at least two, I want to say three different seasons where they went undefeated and didn't sniff the national championship. Like, which is weird. But if you had one loss, I mean, you were just done. Like, you just didn't have that, especially in the 80s and 90s. But like, that's what kind of made the season so great in my eyes. But I don't know. I don't know if it's good or bad. I will tell you this though, from seeing that list. Give me the list again of the teams.
All right, so it's Florida State, Clemson, Miami, UNC, which I think are definitely the four most valuable entities in the ACC. And then now NC State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech are 7. Apparently, if you can find 8, which would be a majority, to
Yeah.
say, hey, we will leave, they can bust up the grant of rights. But there's so few valuable entities in the ACC that I don't think they will get there.
I think they will. They only need one more.
What's going to be Wake Forest, Boston College?
It's just they just need one.
I mean, Duke, Duke is like a very
Tech back to the SEC. I'd fucking love that.
Duke is a very valuable entity in basketball, but I mean, they're all right in football. They can be.
Yeah. And
But
also,
are they willing, and I heard Bud and Danny Canal and all those guys on Cover 3 talking about this. It's like what schools are really going to be wanting to commit to, like, if I jump to this power league of the SEC or the Big Ten, that means that I've got to be raising $30 million a year in NIL and all this shit. And it's like, does a program like Duke, would they rather just stay in an ACC? It's like, we don't want to be there. Like, we can't be. We don't have and that's, Wake Forest, same thing. Like they can rise up and have good programs, but they're never going to be able to compete in this new world of NIL.
Our boss, Kevin Duffy, posted something today, I think, or at least we put it on social media today. Say like a really good point. And it's like, he was joking, but he's not wrong about any part of it. Is that I think he said, I just really enjoyed college football more when all the payments were being made under the table. And like, it just, I will watch college football. It'll be my favorite thing. It's been my favorite thing since I was 4 years old. It'll be my favorite thing till I die. Besides chips and queso. And then I will figure, like, every year, like I don't want to end up being that fan that like bitches about it. Like, that like, this is awful. It's not the game it used to be. And the people are sitting out bowl games and any of that. Cause I know I'm still going to watch it, but I just really hope that like the transition into this like new era, at the very least, I hope it's not like unrecognizable off the bat. You know what I mean? Like, just like, it needs to be like how Jennifer Aniston's Botox is done. By the way, Can we fucking talk about the biggest surprise of the year, that Martha Stewart is apparently fucking hot?
Apparently, she's 81.
81 and
That
could
seems
get
very
it.
old.
I mean, like, what is happening? Pull up the picture. Martha Stewart was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. We were like fawning over Angel Reese last week and her picture, but Martha Stewart just like don't start, Willie Gray. Just wait until you see it. I was shocked. Shocked,
Right.
to tell you.
Let's see.
It's all over Twitter. I can send you it in the DM if you want.
Nope, I got it here. Let's see.
Oh, and I know what I was going to say about the ACC thing. What is this? Yeah, that's not that. What's happening? What?
I mean, obvious that there has to be a lot of work done.
They had to touch it up, right?
Yeah.
I would have said she was like 58 tops.
I mean, this one's kind of nice too.
There's a whole flock of them. She grew her hair out and just got like, I mean, that's bae.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
anyway, okay, so this is what I was gonna say. The teams, because like if you break out of the ACC, they don't all have to go to the same place, right? It's kind of like high school.
right.
Like you just will never see those like 90% of those people again.
Exactly.
So, the most perfect fit, and I will tell you, like the one people said Miami's gonna go to the SEC for such a long time. There is not a more perfect fit for any team in the country right now. Like, and hold on, how am I going to phrase this? Because we have to clip this for fucking social. Let's 5, 6, 7, 8. There's not a more perfect team in the country to go to the Big Ten or any other conference for that matter than the University of Miami. And I will tell you why. Because what the Big Ten is trying to do clearly is have some sort of like tether like to Middle America, right? But also while still touching like in their roots, right? Middle America and their roots, but also still while touching every single corner of the country. They went out and got USC, they got UCLA, not only two traditional powers, but also people at like, you know, I mean, they're literally on the coast. Dropping down here to Miami and going all the way down to Coral Gables, which is apparently even more south than Miami. That's a perfect move, and I guarantee you that's where the Big Ten goes next. If Miami is able to get out of that ridiculous contract with the ACC, they will go. They'll be the first team that they will contact.
They also fit in well too because Mario Cristobal only really knows how to just like pound the rock.
Yeah,
like, and that's basically all you do in the Big Ten. So
yeah, I think it would be. I honestly think it would be a really, really good fit. I tell you what's weird, man, is just like if UNC will probably go to the Big Ten because it's a good school academically and they have like the whole basketball thing. It's not just a football school. I just like the weirdest part of all this. People talk about how like, you know, expansion and how it's like whether it's good or bad, it's just so different than how it was growing up. The weirdest part is not like for expansion is not football related. It's like it is 1,000% like, you know, Georgia and Texas playing on a Tuesday night in basketball. That's the weirdest part.
Yeah, right.
What, David Hill?
All right, last segment here. I think I just wanted to go through how the end of the AP Top 25 last year ended and kind of pick out some teams that we think maybe wouldn't have the same success. And I think it's probably easiest to take TCU out of the running here because let's be honest, I don't think anyone's expecting them to make another national title run.
You gotta take them out.
Yeah. I mean, I think we both were probably going to have them number one. It's like you look, the list starts there. It's like, okay, well, TCU is not going to be that high. What about Tennessee? And I'm not even trying to start shit. I've never been a Joe Milton fan.
Yeah.
And I think not enough is being talked about him taking over for Hendon Hooker. He was supposed to be the guy in the first place, and he couldn't get it done. And so Hendon Hooker came in and basically became a revelation for Tennessee in the offense. You lose him, you lose Hooker, you lose Hyatt, you lose a lot of offensive firepower. The defense was never really that good last year. Can it get better? I don't know. Right. But Tennessee, I mean, they finished number 6 last year.
Yeah, I think that's a very obvious choice, and I don't think you're wrong at all. They I've said this like all offseason, so it's kind of like beating a dead horse for me. Probably is that like I'm not sold on Joe Milton either, and because here's the thing, that offense is not based off of like chunk plays, it's based off of like very very accurate downfield passing. And Joe Milton already in that Orange Bowl like proved me a little bit wrong because he looked great. Like he looked great, and he can throw it further than anyone in the country, right? Besides Uncle Rico. At the same time, I mean, like I think in 5 years we're gonna look at Hendon Hooker and his numbers that he put up, and I'm talking about in an era of Stetson and Bryce Young, and then you talk about like from a draft standpoint of Will Levis and whatever, like that kind of shit. Hendon Hooker had like 5 interceptions in 2 years. Like that is he's not going to be considered like a Peyton Manning or even a T Martin, or maybe even a Josh Dobbs in some circles of like importance to that program. But from a number standpoint, Hendon Hooker is the best quarterback to come through that school since Peyton Manning. Having 5 interceptions. This is the worst cliche to use here, but that kind of shit doesn't grow on trees. Like that's like I don't think Joe Milton can do that. I'll give you my first one, and I honestly hate to say this one first because I love where the quarterback situation is, and I love like the ability of the head coach, even though he's in year 2. But Oregon, I think is going to take a step back because you got to play Oregon State. You lost to them 2 years ago. You've like you got to play Washington, which is like the Pac-12. I've said this a couple weeks ago. Pac-12, I think, is going to be the second best conference in the country this year, and the parity that you're going to see in the Pac-12 is going to be really top heavy. It's going to be very SEC like, where it's going to be like, and I'm not saying from their style of football or any of that kind of shit. I'm saying you're going to have USC and Caleb Williams who are going to be really really good. We saw it in year 1 with Lincoln Riley. They were knocking on the door of the playoff. They probably won't play defense, but not everyone does in that league. Cal's going to be better than people think. You still have, like I said, you have Washington. Washington State was better, I think, than some people gave him credit for. Arizona State and Arizona, I don't know what that looks like. You got Dion over at Colorado. No, wait. Yeah, you do. You got Dion over at Colorado. There's just a lot of new consistency is probably the best way to put it in the Pac-12. And I think that Oregon is going to be the one that has the most difficult schedule where they will take they're going to take a step back also because like they've submitted themselves as a national brand. So it's going to be like, we're not going to be accustomed to seeing Oregon at 8-4 if that's what happens.
Right. This one probably seems obvious, but I'm really buying into it. Is Clemson finally continuing to take a step down? But I mean, this will be the first year I think they won't win the ACC.
Yeah.
And it's a confluence of things. You finally got a Florida State program that's on the rise and is ready to compete again. But also, you've got a tricky schedule this year. You got to play Florida State early in the year. I'm not sold on Klubnik yet. I mean, granted, he was a true freshman last year, so I'm willing to say, hey, maybe through this spring. But who's he throwing the ball to? Like, Antonio Williams is a decent receiver, but I mean, I'm sure most people listening to this podcast have never heard his name.
Yeah.
And where are the Sammy Watkinses? Where's the Nuke Hopkins? Where are these guys?
Yeah.
Hell, even a Hunter Renfro, like, like Justin Ross. Like, where are all these guys that they've had?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see it on their offense. They lost a ton of talent along the defense, and they still have a lot of talent, but it's young talent on the defensive line. And they've never really been great on the O-line. And I just think, you got to play Florida State. You get them at home, which is nice. But then you go to Miami, probably not that hard. But then to NC State, which is always tough.
Right.
And you got to go to Notre Dame, which has Sam Hartman now, and I think is a much improved program. Plus, you lost to South Carolina last year. You play them in Columbia this year.
Right.
You got to play UNC this year, who I think with Drake May should have a pretty competitive roster. So to me, I think Clemson, this is the year where they finally don't win the ACC, and I'm hoping it's Florida State.
And I think that, like, I know you've been banging the drum for this all offseason, but I don't disagree with you either. Love the comments here from our audience. Harry saying Pac-12 will be bloody. We've talked about this before, Harry. I think you're 1,000% right about that. Trevor Garza, welcome back again. Already making good points. Who's blocking for Klubnik at Clemson? That's going to be my next deep dive because I remember bringing this up in 2 years ago. like the offensive line and the underdevelopment there that Clemson has had under Dabo has been like, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm almost confident they haven't had anyone. I'm almost confident they haven't had anyone over a second round draft pick at offensive line in the last decade that Dabo's been there. Like,
no, I who was the kid that came out? Yeah, I think you're right. Jackson Carman, I think, was a 5-star, and I don't know if he's still on the roster, but yeah, no, you're right. It's especially
bad.
for a program that's had as much success as Clemson has. You'd be shocked to see how little talent they've had on the O line, which is
and they recruited really well for like a while there. Clemson was like in the top. Again, they're still great. Like they still have like a lot of talent and recruits. Like they recruit well, but like for a while there, they were getting like, yeah, this five. It was like Bama, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, and that was it.
yeah.
And Clemson was in that mix. You don't really hear that as much anymore. And Clemson also, like they were bringing in all these 5-stars, but none of them at like that position, which was just like, and if they were, like again, they wouldn't pan out, which is just super weird.
Well, and I think perception is reality. I remember it happened with Florida State. It's like, oh, like I feel like I wasn't hearing them being in the mix with kids and recruiting anymore. And I was like, wow, it's still Florida State. They'll find the kid. And then a couple of years down the road, they fell off. And I think that on the recruiting trail, if you're not a popular name, that also holds weight with the recruits. And I don't see a ton of kids jumping to play for Clemson right now. I mean, they'll certainly land 5-star still, but they're not recruiting at the level that they were, or certainly not the level of a Georgia, Bama, Ohio State type.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, my next one. Where do I want to go here? Oh, I'll give you one. Wait, fuck. Where? Okay. And this one pains me to say because I do love what they have in the backfield, especially in the backfield. But Arkansas. And this sounds weird because they only have they won 9 games 2 years ago. I think they won 7 last year. They went 7-6. They had that weird win against Kansas in the Liberty Bowl, or Independence Bowl, whichever one it was. I just like I say this a lot. There's so much that goes into winning at college, like in college football, especially at this level. And it's stuff that I really didn't realize until I started like doing this job, like 5-6 years ago. The success of like quarterbacks and head coaches and all this stuff that will, for the most part, be designated and kind of like described as like, oh, this guy's trash, this guy sucks, like or this person, this is a bust, he failed. But there's so much that goes into it, like hiring for offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators and like the talent you bring in and keep and able to develop, all that kind of stuff. But the offensive and defensive coordinators specifically, this is the first time in the Sam Pittman era that he's going to have not only one new coordinator, but like 2 new coordinators, because Barry Odom and Briles are both gone. Odom, what concerns me is that the defense was already really bad at Arkansas last year, especially in the secondary, like on the back end. You lose Jalen Catalon, you lose Drew Sanders. I mean, I think you finally lose Bumper Pool. You not only have the depth and your best players that you have to replace on defense, but losing Barry Odom, who was like a former head coach and can help with this whole process during Pittman's first initial 3 years as a head coach, that's a big loss, man. That's a big, I'm not saying Barry Odom was like, like the best coach in the world, but that experience is now gone. I just don't, and they're already in the toughest division in football.
Yep. Yeah, no, with Kendall Briles going out too, there's a lot of changeover. I'm interested to see back on Clemson too, how Garrett Riley does there and how long he's there. All right, well, we're coming up on time here. I don't really have any like big movers or shakers outside of the top 25 from last year.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, well, as things continue to,
we have one more thing. We have the audience questions from Instagram and social media that we've been doing. We're going to start doing all off season.
Okay.
They have to. Also, yeah, like you guys are great in the comments. We talk about it every single week. And all that good stuff. But if you have any questions, and we try to do this whole segment, like the non-football related stuff, especially in the off season, a lot of fun. Make sure you send them in and we'll read them on air for the best ones. Let's get into this week's questions here. Let's see here. Who had this is good. What non-SEC school is the most SEC school?
I mean, I think the easy one is probably Clemson and Florida State are the two.
Yeah.
I'll go Florida State is more SEC.
Ohio State is my answer. Ohio State is
Because of
like
the recruiting or in the fan base?
the fan base is so SEC. They are rabid, they're awful, they are delusional, all of the things that we all are in the SEC as fans. Like it's like they fit it to a T. They recruit nationally, and they're always relevant. It's like they are the. That's why everyone hates them. That's why I hated them for so long. Like they are the epitome of an SEC team. They just sort of live in Ohio. Oh, what? Okay. So somebody said, how about if you had to, no, I don't want to do that one. Favorite thing to do in your free time? That's from Ashton Brown. Favorite thing to do in your free time?
Depends on how much free time I have. If
Yeah.
it's like an extended day and it's nice
Mhm.
weather, I like to go play golf.
Yeah.
If it's 20 minutes, got to kill some time, want to relax, I play guitar. Been playing that since I was 14. And pretty much anything musical is my jam.
Yeah.
I
That's
do
fair.
play PS5 a little bit. But I'm really bad at like watching shows and like
Yeah.
movies. My attention span's not great for that kind of stuff. What about you?
Well, we're trying to learn some new habits, some healthier habits. So I think for me, I think I would
Gardening?
have said, what's that?
Gardening?
Gardening. I went for a run earlier. I'm trying to get back into that.
Nice.
I so I've been like really big into binging shows and stuff like that. I tell you what, like binging shows especially is probably like my new reading. And I say new, I mean like it hasn't like I was reading in the past. So,
Yeah.
but I think that there's been like some like really really good shows like this year, I've like tried to get into those a bunch, and yeah, so like like Succession I tried to get into. It's kind of like whatever. Like it's harder for you because like you know you got kids and all that kind of stuff. It's like for me, it's like and I'm already kind of like a night owl. So but I tell you what, honestly, and this is I don't know if this doesn't answer the question, but one thing I really do like doing in my downtime is like deep dives and like looking up like information and like getting into these like rabbit holes about stuff. I really,
No,
really
I enjoy that too. But sometimes I get like way too if I get too into it, and I'll look back after like 2 hours and I'll be like, I don't think any of this statistics are really have anything to do with anything.
yeah,
And
that's
I
like
just
the worst
wasted 2
feeling.
hours of my day.
I remember one night I was trying to convince myself that LSU was going to be bad this year. This is like not that long ago, and I was talking to Mickey Sheremy about it, and I'm like, let me just say, you guys are going to take a step back, and I've said it a bunch in the offseason, but I don't, and I still think they have to prove some shit, whatever. But I remember like doing the deep dive, and I'm looking at these stats, I'm looking at their upcoming schedule, and their schedule is like, oh, it's not bad at all. And then it's like looking at like, and then it was like looking at their. I'm like, I remember I finally, after like 20 or 30 minutes, just admitted to myself that I was like, I'm just forcing whatever stat I can find because it's not adding up. Anyway, okay, what's your last one here? Let's see here. Not really any great ones here. If you had to ask school, we've already done that. Well, let's answer one of the comments here. Landscaping is my talking season.
Have you ever done shoot the hooch? Yes, I've done that.
I haven't done that.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I mean, the Chattahoochee's kind of dirty now, though. To be honest.
Now, yeah. Also, yeah.
Yeah.
Ever since Alan Jackson ruined it,
Sure.
made that pyramid of cans in the pale moonlight, and
That is a good idea. I don't know how to say your name, Alias.
Yeah,
Alice, maybe it's a unique way to spell
Elias.
Elias. I need to try that. Is watching a show while I exercise on a bike.
Yeah, dude. Don't you have a Peloton?
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like with those, you kind of have to watch unless you're just going on like a free ride, you got to watch the instruction.
When I was on the Peloton back at the House of the Valley, and this is when I started my slip into bad habits, but I would have
just then
a thing just then. I'm getting out of them now. But I would pull over like this little right over here, this little white thing back here, like little bookshelf. I would pull it right next to the Peloton, and I would set up poker and just sit there and fucking play poker while I was riding the bike, and like, and then
we have an hour time limit because everything just turned red and on the timer.
No, we're good.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
Anyway, all right. Last but not least, flats versus drums. That's fine. I like that. Go ahead. What's your wing sauce?
So my go-to these days is a hot wing sauce, and then I ask them to bring out the lemon pepper dry rub as like just the rub in a cup, and you dip the hot wing and get the rub all over the wing.
I don't like any of, like, if I had to serve you and I was like still serving tables, I would fucking hate you.
All I say is 10 hot wings and then a side of lemon pepper dry rub.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta do.
Lemon
Texas Pete. Obviously Texas Pete.
Yeah, obviously Texas Pete. We love it. I will say,
and I'd say I like flats too.
I don't really. Yeah, I actually had. I went out last night, even though it was Sunday. Don't judge. They had Capri Sun at the bar I was at. It was awesome.
That is cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so but I had some wings last night.
Especially because you know that there's not children there, so it's just kind of weird that they have it.
Yeah. I was saying it as a joke. It's like one of my go-to like jokes at the bar. Like, I'll just do a tequila and Capri Sun.
And they're like, actually,
she was like, yeah, it's frozen. Is that okay? And I was like, I love you. I don't know. So I'm moving.
Now we're married.
Now we're married. So, yeah, I will say I like. I don't really have a preference on the flats or drums thing, but also I don't like where the state of hot sauce is going right now in the world, because
outside of Texas Pete,
people are getting so aggressive about it. So it's like, so sometimes I'll just order medium because I feel like if I order hot, someone's like, "Oh, you want hot? Well, I put a ghost pepper in here, and you're gonna shoot fire out of your mouth for 3 days." And I'm like, I don't. It's like a very weird. Do you even lift, bro? Like vibe that I get from fucking hot sauce, like, and wing sauce now. Anyway, that's it. All right, that's the show. We love you guys. Thanks for joining us. You guys have been great. Sorry how it started, but it was great.
All right, we'll see you guys later.